Let me ask you a question. Do lemmings jump off cliffs? Do lemmings follow each other and all hurl themselves off of cliffs to their deaths? Well, if we're to believe popular lore, they do. But the truth is, they don't. So why is it that everybody thinks they do? Well, it's because that person over there said they do. And it said so in that television show. And in that movie it was brought up. And we just hear it peppered from all different directions that lemmings jump off cliffs. But look it up. Doesn't happen. Now my point in making this video today, and forgive me if I talk fast because I've got a lot of stuff to cover here, but my point today is that we have this perception that if you want to lose weight, then you need to give up alcohol. But why do you think that? If you think that, why do you? Why do people typically think that? It's because they heard it from someone over there, and they heard it from over here, and they heard it from over here. And even there are experts who they say it. But why do they think it? Well, it's because they heard it from over here, and they heard it from over there, and it's just common knowledge. And going without alcohol, if you're somebody who drinks it, it does take a little bit of self-discipline. And so you definitely feel like you're doing better if you go without alcohol, because you are overcoming an obstacle. And I think that feeds into the idea of you need to quit, because it's hard. In fact, here's a person, his name is Craig Ballantyne, and he's kind of a fitness trainer. And look what he's posted here. It talks about alcohol and pizza on a fat loss diet, and then he posts about consequences. And when people talk about consequences, they're not usually talking about good consequences. They mean there's negative consequences if you do these things. He's posting about alcohol. He's one of these people who's just spreading a myth about alcohol. Now I'm going to start this by just showing the last few days for me when I stopped drinking alcohol and what happened to my weight. It went up. And this is sort of incidental, but I just kind of want to describe it anyway. It has nothing really to do with the theme of this video. But I just want to show that using one study, well, I'll describe two studies, where it shows that alcohol, in the case of men, really doesn't make much difference at all. And in the case of women, it may be the opposite of what you think. So let's look at my spreadsheet. My spreadsheet is where I keep track of my weight, and I keep track of the calories that I eat. And the spreadsheet does a calculation based on my goal, when I want to be down to a certain weight, and then it tells me how many calories to eat for the day. And if you look up here, there's this big red area. And the bottom of the red area, it'll either say beer, or it will say no beer. Now if you look at this other side of the spreadsheet, you can see one column there which says exercise. And it says how many calories in those entries. It says how many calories I burned in exercise. That's because when this says no beer, that means for me that it's an exercise day. Otherwise, it's a beer day. So every day I either drink beer or I exercise, depending upon what my spreadsheet tells me. Now here's what's interesting. If you look at the exercise days, you'll notice that my weight, which had been going down, 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 it slowed to a stop, and then it went up a little bit when I stopped drinking and started exercising. Now, why did that happen? It happened because of what I said in the last video, the video about the spherical chicken. It's because your body is composed of three parts. You have the lean weight, which includes muscle and bone and that sort of thing, and then your body fat. But then there's the third category, which is your water and food weight. All this stuff, when you get on the scale, gets weighed, but the stuff that's in your intestines, or from your stomach all the way down to your colon, that's what I'm calling water and food weight. Now, when I quit drinking beer, well, think about what happens when you drink beer. You drink the beer, and it just goes right through you and comes out the other side. In fact, it's a diuretic, which means that more liquid is going to come out than goes in. So let's say, I'm just making up the numbers here, but let's say you drink a 12-ounce beer. Maybe in an hour you're going to urinate 13 ounces. And then after a few of those beers, you go to sleep and you wake up the next morning and you go, oh, that's not good. And you drink a big glass of water to rehydrate yourself, because you've had this diuretic which has depleted you of water. So when I gave up drinking beer for these few days, because my spreadsheet said so, I started eating food. Now, instead of having beer that just went right through me, the food, it has to take some time to get digested and go through from stomach to colon and out. Which means that when I get on the scale and weigh myself, it's weighing that food. And so my weight went up. And this is what I talked about last time. When people first go on a diet, and it just seems like they can lose weight really quickly those first couple of weeks, it's because they can lose weight really quickly. What they've lost by eating less is weight out of their digestive tract. It's just the water and food weight. And when they go back to eating normally, they gain all that back again. And there's a lot more weight there than you might think. On the other hand, you might want to look at the body fat column as well. My weight stopped, and even stopped going down, and even went up a little bit, but my body fat, this is two columns. One is called the athlete setting, and the other is a normal setting that's on my impedance scale. So when it makes an estimate of your body fat, you have to choose, am I an athlete or am I, just a normal guy? You can see in both columns, my body fat reading changed, went down in spite of my weight staying the same. This is all important stuff. So now let me move on to a study that I read about on a website called The Facts About Fitness. Now, The Facts About Fitness is a site, I don't know if it exists anymore. By the time I edit this video, I'll probably have looked, and maybe I'll have it up on screen. But it used to be run by somebody named Christian Finn. He's still around. I think he decided to open a different website. He calls it MuscleEvo.com. MuscleEvo, like as in muscle evolution. And he's a fitness trainer. But on the old Facts About Fitness days, it was this paid site, and I paid my membership fee to read these things. What he would do is he would look at scholarly articles that are kind of hard to read. They're published in journals. And he would read these things, and then he would distill down what was in the journal and sort of put it into a language that the rest of us can understand. And one of the articles one of the studies that he wrote about was one where, now I've got to make these numbers up, by the way, because this is like 12 years ago that I read about this study, and I don't remember the actual numbers. So I'm going to use 350 calories per day deficit in a second, and I'm going to say the study went on for 90 days. That's just to make math easy. But the moral of the story is the same, even though I don't remember the actual numbers. What they did is they took a large group of people, and for each individual in that group, they figured out what that person's maintenance calories were. Meaning, if they ate more than maintenance calories, they would have gained weight, and if they ate less than maintenance calories, they would have lost weight. And once they did that, they divided the groups into two groups. I say group A on this side and B on this side. And in group A, what they did is they gave them a calorie deficit, say 350 calories per day. Now, I chose 350 calories because 10 times that, 3,500 calories, is how many calories just about we have in a pound of body fat. So if they're on a calorie deficit of 350 calories a day, you would expect them to lose a pound of weight every 10 days. So if they're on the diet for 90 days, you'd expect them to lose 9 pounds. That is exactly what happened. They lost exactly what the researchers expected based on the calorie deficit they gave them. And then there's Group B. They said, Group B, we're putting you on a diet as well, except it's not a calorie deficit diet. You're going to get to eat all of the calories that we've already determined you burn per day. We're going to give you your full maintenance calories. However, Unlike this group, who, by the way, I didn't mention before, but it needs to be said, were not drinking any alcohol, unlike the teetotaler group, you guys are going to have 350 of your maintenance calories in alcohol. So this group had a deficit of 350 calories per day. This group had to drink 350 of their calories in alcohol. Now these guys lost the weight that you would expect them to lose. The question is, what happened to these guys? They lost weight at the same rate as A. B, who was getting all of their calories, and some of them in alcohol, lost weight. And they lost at the same rate as the people who were on deficit calories. And I think the way Christian Finn put it in his write-up was, it seems to be that alcohol calories are metabolized differently than regular calories. Nice, huh? So I went looking for this study. I still have access to journals through a university that I recently graduated. And I couldn't find the study because there are so many studies on alcohol. I just was unable to find it. But this is the first study that I clicked on right here. And I just wanted to read this. This study really doesn't pertain to anything that I'm talking about here, but I just wanted to read what it is that this study says. Consumption of alcohol is rapidly increasing in the world. Epidemiological studies have shown low to moderate alcohol consumption is beneficial for several cardiovascular diseases and for other diseases such as diabetes mellitus and pancreatitis. Now this is what I like, is because then it goes into, however, excessive drinking. In other words, this study, the way it was written up in the introduction, the people who did this study, they're just coming right out saying, yeah, alcohol's good for you. Which is contrary to this common knowledge lemmings idea that alcohol is some vice and that you need to give it up to be good to yourself. No, alcohol's actually good for you. I mean, how many times have you heard somebody say, you know, I need to take better of myself, so I am just quitting drinking coffee. I'm not drinking any more coffee. I'm switching to tea or something. Meanwhile, for the last decade and a half, we've been getting hammered and hammered and hammered and hammered with study after study after study showing this newfound benefit of drinking coffee and this newfound benefit. Coffee is really, really good for you. You know, how many people do you hear say, you know, I really need to get into better shape and I need to be healthier, so I'm giving up fruits and vegetables. In fact, I'm giving up anything with vitamin C. No, you don't hear them say that. That would be stupid. But that's the same thing as saying I'm giving up coffee, because coffee's good for you. Where on earth did anyone get the idea that coffee's bad for you? It's just floating out there. Common knowledge. Lemmings jump off cliffs. Same with alcohol being bad for you. It's not. Okay, so I couldn't find the study I was looking for, and this one was the first one I clicked on. The second one I clicked on is this one right here, and I'm going to show you this chart from it. Now, the thing to know about this chart, the first thing I need to go into is body mass index. Body mass index is based on the idea that if somebody is twice the height of someone else, you'd expect the person, even if they are physically fit, both of them, you would expect the person that's twice as tall to weigh more than the person who's half as tall. That just makes sense, right? And also, you're a three-dimensional being, right? And height is only one dimension. The other dimension is your width, right? Like shoulder to shoulder, and then you've got back to front. So as height goes up, you expect your width to go wider, and you expect your back to front to get bigger. Which means that as you get taller, your weight should actually go up as the square. So if you're twice as high, twice as tall, you should be 4 times the weight at the same physical fitness. Now that's what body mass index is. It's basically your height divided by the square of your mass. And the reason to bring that up is because the vertical axis of this chart is body mass index. So the higher you get on the vertical axis, the fatter you are, regardless of your height. Now, along the horizontal axis, on the other hand, you have how much alcohol is consumed per day. So you have no alcohol at all on one end of the chart, and then you've got, on the other end of the chart, it says 50 grams per day or more. Now, what's 50 grams per day in terms of alcohol? Most of us don't know this, so I looked it up, figured it out, and a bottle of wine is about 70 grams of alcohol. So now let's look at the gray and the black. Now, the gray bars represent men, and the black bars represent women. Now, what's interesting about the gray bars is that the gray bars are showing that, hello, I guess that's going to happen sometimes. Welcome to the video cast. As I was saying, speaking of gray, the gray bars represent men, and what it's saying is that there's no correlation at all between how much men drink and their weight, because as you look across these bars, they're all about the same height, regardless of how much people drink. Women, on the other hand, are the black bars, and there's quite a difference that's made there. And if you look over at the far left, you can see that the women who drink nothing at all tend to be the fattest. If you want to be a fat woman, I guess you just don't drink at all. And then you start drinking, you see women who drink some alcohol, like maybe, I don't know, a beer. So this is in alcohol. I related it to wine a second ago, but whatever it is that they're drinking in order to drink just that little amount per day, on average, you can see that as they drink more alcohol, the women just get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier and skinnier until you're up to the second set of bars coming this way, where it says 25 to 49.9 grams in between there. Well, about halfway between that is what, about 37.5? That's about half a bottle of wine. So the skinniest women are drinking about half a bottle of wine per day. So if you want to be really fat, it looks like you want to drink nothing. If you want to start getting skinny, if you're a woman, you just keep drinking till you hit half a bottle of wine per day, or maybe a little bit more. And then it goes up again for women that are drinking more than 50 grams per day. But it doesn't go up very high. I mean, it's the women who are drinking none at all, those women are a lot fatter than the women who are drinking a bottle of wine a day, it looks like. So, it's exactly the opposite of what you would expect if you're trying to lose weight. I kind of had motivation to do this video this time because a friend of mine, she just said that she went 28 days, a month, and that happened to go over the end of February. That's why it's 28 days, that she decided to go without alcohol. And she was expecting some weight loss from it. Why? Well, that's the common knowledge. Lemmings jump off cliffs. And she was disappointed when it didn't happen. Well, that's because what she did is she went from being one of the skinnier people who drinks alcohol to being one of the fat people who doesn't. This is important stuff. Okay, now let's look at another chart. This one it still has alcohol consumption on the horizontal axis, but now the vertical axis is how much food people eat per day, not including calories from alcohol. So it says kilojoules. That's the international units, the same as like calorie. Calorie is sort of like saying miles. Kilojoules is like saying kilometers. So, one thing to notice is on the far right, where the people who drink the most alcohol are, the women are eating a lot of calories. So no wonder their weight went up, right? This is calories without alcohol, and that's where the women had suddenly gained weight. the women who were eating or drinking the most alcohol. So even them gaining weight had nothing to do with the alcohol, it was the food calories. Now this is real science. Now I want to read to you something from a book called Body by Science. This is in the introduction, and I'm reading it because I think they put it so well that I can't paraphrase it any better. It says, often in the fitness world, someone who appears to have above average physical characteristics or capabilities is assumed to be a legitimate authority. The problem with granting authority to appearance is that a large part of an individual's expression of such above average physical characteristics and capabilities could simply be the result of wild variations across a statistical landscape. For instance, if you look out over a canopy of trees, you will probably notice a lone tree or two rising up above the rest, and it's completely within human nature to notice things that stand out in such a way. In much the same manner, we take notice of individuals who possess superior physical capabilities, and when we do, there is a strong tendency to identify these people as sources of authority. To make matters worse, many people who happen to possess such abnormal physical capabilities frequently misidentify themselves as sources of authority, taking credit for something that nature has, in essence, randomly dropped in their laps. In other words, people are intellectually prepared to overlook the role of statistical variation in attributing authority. Now, why is that important? Well, first, let's look at this, the cover of this book. You notice that there's no people on it? There's the names of the authors. I suspect that's because the authors are just ordinary scientists. Maybe they're not physically fit at all. Whereas, if you go to the diet section or the physical fitness section in a bookstore and you start pulling the books off, you're going to see people who really look like they know what they're talking about. They're physically fit, lean and healthy, and you think, this guy knows. But what they're pointing out there is that these people are very likely just people who are genetically gifted. And they may be crediting to themselves knowledge that they don't really have. It's like, hey, I'm the one who's actually doing it. How are you doing? Who are you to argue with me? I'm actually accomplishing it. The question is, do they actually know why they're accomplishing it? Which brings us back to like Craig Ballantyne that I mentioned earlier. Who am I to argue with Craig Ballantyne? He's super physically fit and doing very well. Now, I actually don't think that Craig Ballantyne is one of these outliers who has it all come easy. He's just worked very hard and he's done it for a long time. But that doesn't mean that he's right about everything. And I don't think he could put together a good argument based upon actual scientific studies and data that says that you shouldn't be drinking alcohol if you're on a fat-reducing diet. So that brings me to my point. Part of the reason that you probably think that you don't need, or that you should stop drinking alcohol, is probably because you've picked up a book off of a shelf and you've read it, and this person, most of us want gurus. We want it to be simple. We don't want to have to study 10 million different things. We want one person who's successful to tell us how they did it and just give us the plan and let us do it. And that, it probably works. Some of it works because some of what they're saying is true, but some of what they're saying may not be true and may just not matter. And my point in reading that is you need to go by what scientists actually have found out doing legitimate studies, as opposed to diet gurus who are really just effective salesmen. They're people who are effective at getting you to buy their books. And that's it for this week's Homebrew Wednesday. Maybe I should call this Losing the Beer Belly with Homebrew.